Time for another Prepper movie critique. So guys, today we're going to Prepper movie critique the movie 28 Years Later, which I thought was a pretty decent movie. There was a couple of issues that I had with the way it was filmed, but I'm going to review that portion or that kind of complaint, if you will, in the Angry Film Critic. Anyway, from this angle as a prepper, we're going to talk about this movie. So this movie was released, if I'm not mistaken, 2-3 months ago. It's the sequel to 28 weeks later and 28 days later. This actually takes place after 28 weeks later. So when the outbreak happened to what we saw in the movie 28 years later. Now the movie stars Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, Alfie Williams. And these are the three main characters. And then the mother, this lady here, I forgot her name. She's also in the movie. She actually plays a decent role, or is probably the reason why what happens in the movie happens. Now, there'll be some spoiler alerts. Not a lot. I'm not going to try to give a lot away. Again, I had some issues with the way the movie was filmed, but the way the movie carried on about how life succeeded after the infection was pretty interesting. So, for those that don't know, the infection took place in the UK. They were able to back it down or back it to the UK, being that it did spread outside of that, but they caught it before it got out of hand because of reports of what they were getting coming out of the UK. But the way the movie takes place on the island where the community lives away from the infection, and that was probably the only way that they can live away from the infection, which was pretty smart, which is on an island surrounded by water, and during high tide you can't get to the island, at least not on foot, and low tide you could walk a path that leads you directly to the island. So during low tide, obviously their security's up, which was pretty cool. In the movie, the people that go back to mainland to have their kids take out the infection as a way of rite of passage of growing up, they use bow and arrow. They don't use anything else. There is no weapons. Now, in the movie, there are weapons being used because a group of soldiers, if you will, get stranded on the island. And the way they get stranded on the island was pretty interesting. But that was the only time you saw firearms used, was through them. Now, as a prepper, the only issues I found with it was just that they were putting themselves in harm's way to go on an island and make sure their kids had a right to passage by hunting zombies. Now, in the movie, there's a specific group of zombies called Alpha. And a lot of movies that talk about zombies apocalypse that have gone on for a long period of time, there is this one evolutionary group of zombies called Alphas. And you've seen it in a lot of movies, so I'm wondering if this is a real thing or a real theory, or did they test this theory out in the real life or the real world for them to notice and for this to show up in every zombie movie where zombies have taken over for a long period of time, whatever that's 10 or 20 years. But putting yourself in harm's way is something that we wouldn't do. Now, obviously, you had to scavenge food like they were doing, or scavenge supplies like they were also doing. Yes, then that would make sense. But just to go out there to take out a couple zombies so that your kid can, sort of didn't make sense. But anyway, the group of zombies were called Alphas, and these were bigger zombies. They were bigger and they were faster. And again, knowing that these things are out there and how fast they move and the strength that they have was sort of insane to put yourself and your kid in that position. But again, as a prepper, the way they were living on the island seemed about right. It checked out as far as like taking a shower, via warm water or heating it up and only having a certain time block. They had a communal store where they could pick up things that they need or things that they ran out at home. They were able to pick up at the store. They looked like they had a bartering system, so obviously they didn't have any cash. And by the way, the entire UK was quarantined, right? So the rest of the world wasn't infected by this. They got it so it was just UK being quarantined. And once you were on the UK island, once you were in the UK, that was it. You didn't go anywhere else. And no one came after you, and you were never able to leave that island ever again. I thought that was pretty cool. Not island. I don't want to keep saying the UK. Once you were shipwrecked or whatever it was, or you happened to be dropped off there for some weird reason, you could not leave that quarantine zone. You were there for life. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But again, the whole like going out there and looking for them, unless you were doing an extermination thing where you were looking to get the population of the zombies down so that you can get to living again, that would make some sense, but that wasn't the case here. So again, not a lot of prepper stuff other than the beginning of the movie. The event that goes on with the mother was really cool. Ralph Fiennes' character being a secluded doctor who they thought was crazy but really wasn't. His role was really good, and it added to the movie's touch at the end. So when you get to the end of the movie, you'll see why his character, at least I thought, was a welcomed character in the movie. Again, Ralph Fiennes' character being a doctor, he used a lot of plant-based stuff to get the medications he needed to, and he probably also had medication stored away from surrounding hospitals in the area. But again, to get to him as a doctor because your loved one needed something, you had to battle zombies to get to him. It was almost like a video game at that point. The movie was pretty good. Again, I have issues with the way it was shot. And when you guys watch it, you'll see what I mean. They were trying to go back to the old school way of 28 days later, and then they added some shit in it, and I was like, that sort of didn't work. But then as they phased that out towards the end of the movie just got better. But the storyline of the movie was great. The phasing in of certain things they did was kind of weird. And again, on the Angry Film Critic, I'll talk about the style of shooting that was done that sort of like didn't work. But it because the movie was okay, it sort of balanced out. Anyway, other than that, guys. All right, guys, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching.